Well, I saw Mike and Lauren in Philly on Wednesday because I live down there. And then I saw Jess, my son-in-law, and grandma on Friday. So Sunday it was just Gina. Oh, yeah. I know. Not too old. Thanks for that. Maybe there was a cop after me. Yeah, well, it was close. As long as I have it. I'll be in the back. How are you? Get my copy.
It's a long time. He's up against some stiff competition. People who already work for City Hudson. As he said, he's very philosophical. He said, if I get it, fine. If I don't, except for yours.
Still are, yes.
Yeah, right there, Mr. Supervisor. Right at the top, it says. Well, I mean,
You're gonna keep me company? Is that what you're doing, right?
well, I mean, I don't know why they put the desk here, or they put it,
Right here. In the work session. So you can swing in there. Yep, we got a few minutes.
what, you're growing a beard again?
No, just we'll see. It's only 2 days. We'll see. What's that? Press and hold. So I'm always live.
Yeah.
Did you guys talk to him about me? That I can't stop talking?
Ours is the opposite. In fact, we can't turn ours on at all.
Joe, they know better than what I'm back here.
Hey, Joe.
make sure that.
Joe, I don't want you running the pace. I don't-
Look at her.
no running.
Get it away from Joe.
No running.
Hey, Vincent.
Ruth and Gary sitting in the second row.
You just turned it on.
I gotta keep going. Hoping to go down for a couple of days. So that's good. Brendan, Senator Stolz is here if you want to invite him.
And then you pledge. Okay, so just. There we go. All right, if I can get the trustees up front, please. All right. Who are we missing? Rich, Bill down there, got Dave, okay. All right. Look at this turnout. So just a couple quick things before I open the meeting. Just keep in mind, everything tonight is live. So we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but I just want you to know if you're whispering in the back, a mic can possibly pick you up. And what I learned in my TV days is there's nothing off the record. So if you say something, it could get picked up by one of the microphones here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion to open the meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. If you don't mind standing, we're going to conduct the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'm going to move over here for this.
Okay,
For the,
and I'll just stick.
Yep, perfect. All right, so we have a lot of dignitaries in the room today. So without going around the room and pointing folks out, I'm standing here so that Mr. Frankel, Mark Frankel over here, who is our guru when it comes to this new village teleconferencing system, has advised me I need to be by a mic for this. So I'm not going to go through and point out all the VIPs here, because everybody in this room is a VIP, and for the right reasons, but there's somebody we're going to celebrate today. But before I do that, I'd like to make a proclamation and recognize, the village board would like to recognize one of our young sons who really went above and beyond of recent to help out a public safety officer. So I asked Mr. Brennan, who's sitting in the front row here, Timothy Brennan, to be here tonight so I could read a proclamation, which is going to be given to him on behalf of the board. And it says, whereas Timothy Brennan, a lifelong Cornwall and Hudson resident, graduated from Cornwall Central High School in 2010 and Orange County Community College in 2015, where he captained a men's soccer team. In 2017, he graduated from Pace University with a degree in business administration. Throughout high school and college, he worked at a local eatery, Village Pizza, which just celebrated its 30-year anniversary, and then earned an internship at an energy company, Consolidated Edison. And whereas Mr. Brennan has now been employed for 5 years with Consolidated Edison and currently holds a position of Chief Construction Inspector, supervising gas pipeline construction efforts throughout Westchester County. Here's where it gets good. Shortly before 1:30 p.m. on May 20th, 2021, while Mr. Brennan was overseeing a Con Ed crew tasked to lay gas lines in Dobbs Ferry, New York, an assailant, viciously and unprovoked, did slash the neck of an unsuspecting Dobbs Ferry police officer who was hired to provide security and traffic control for utility workers and was in the vicinity of Mr. Brennan. Without regard for his safety, Mr. Brennan immediately sprang into action. As the wounded officer radioed back to dispatch, providing a subject description, Mr. Brennan dialed 911, maintained sight of the fleeing attacker, and then dashed to a company vehicle in order to secure a first aid kit. And whereas Mr. Brennan immediately tended to the officer's potentially life-threatening injury by applying a pressure dressing to the wound and communicated to the officer, calming him in order to avert the onset of shock due to the trauma and helping to keep him alert and conscious until an ambulance arrived. When the injured officer worried that he was going to die and requested that his wife and kids be advised he loved them, the Good Samaritan assured him, quote, "No, sir, you're going to be able to do it yourself. You're going to make it," close quote. The officer was tended to by medics and transported to the hospital. He is expected to make a full recovery. Now, therefore, be it resolved, by virtue of the authority invested in me as mayor of the village of Cornwall and Hudson, and on behalf of the village board, and on the occasion of Mr. Brennan's appearance before the Board of Trustees, we, the Cornwall and Hudson community, extend our heartfelt appreciation for our favorite son's heroic and courageous actions. Your hometown is incredibly proud of you. Come on up. So we have a big night planned for everybody. So as I pointed out before, we are on a live streaming right now. So if you go to our Facebook page for the Village of Cornwall and Hudson or to our website, you can click onto a link and YouTube will cover our meetings, our business meetings going forward. So every month. If you're not able to watch it in real time, you can go back later after the fact and watch it again. So just know that that's available. Tonight's a big night, and not just having Mr. Brennan here, I thought it was important to do his first. The next person I'd like to honor is no stranger to the village of Cornwall and Hudson or to Cornwall. And one of the really, really neat things about him is, you know, Mr. Moulton is in his early 90s and spent 26 years as the mayor of this wonderful village and served in the military, in the Air Force, across 3 different generations: the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Cold War. That spans my family, my grandfather, my father, and myself. That spans my family. And Mr. Moulton served in the Air Force during that period of time and courageously for his country. He ended up coming to the village of Cornwall and Hudson, and without me getting into the details wrong, and because County Executive Steve Newhouse could not be here tonight because Ironically, he is serving at Pearl Harbor right now, out in Hawaii. But he wanted me to present this and name this for Orange County Mayor Edward C. Moulton Jr. Day. So this is from the county executive, Steve Newhouse. Whereas Edward C. Moulton Jr. was born in Newburgh, New York on May 13th, 1930. Attended SUNY New Paltz, where he met his future wife, Florence Terwilliger, marrying her in December of 1953. Commissioned in the U.S. Air Force, Mr. Moulton served 20 years in active duty, a military career that spanned the Korean, Vietnam, and Cold Wars. His noble service earned him the Bronze Star Medal and Air Force Commendation Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. And whereas he and Florence settled in Cornwall and Hudson in 1972 and made it their home, continuing his career in public service by playing an active role in the community as president of both the Cornwall Lions Club and the National Temple Hill Association. His commitment to Cornwall saw him also serve as chair for both the Independence Day Committee and the Cornwall Bicentennial Committee. I wore this flag tonight because this is a flag that I got in 1976 when I was in the 5th grade in Georgia for the bicentennial. And to think that you were a person in charge of that and running that all those years ago, unbelievable. And whereas Edward C. Moulton Jr.'s unwavering dedication to the village and the environment included 4 years as a village trustee and 26 years as mayor, making him the longest serving mayor in village history. During his tenure in municipal government, the village's first mandatory recycling law was implemented. Remember when recycling was not a thing? I mean, can you imagine that? All right, and a view preservation law was passed in Orange County. A riverfront park was developed, tree replacement projects implemented, and the village water system improved upon. A passionate supporter of local business development, Mayor Moulton helped protect the historic character of Cornwall and Hudson while also ushering in an era of progress and expansion that has made COH the envy of the Hudson Valley region. And whereas he was instrumental in the procurement of the property that you sit in right now, 325 Hudson Street, that once housed an automotive dealership and a bank. Since 1991, the facility has served the residents of Cornwall and Hudson as Village Hall, housing staff and featuring this very boardroom. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen M. Newhouse, Orange County Executive, do hereby proclaim Monday, June 21st, 2021, Mayor Edward C. Moulton Jr. Day in Orange County, signed Stephen M. Newhouse, County Executive. But wait, like the old TV commercial used to go, wait, there's much, much more. So I reached out to all of our elected officials. Some of them were tied up at other events. As I mentioned to you, Mr. Newhouse is in Pearl Harbor. Senator James Skoufis, who represents this beautiful village, agreed to come and say a few words, and I'm thrilled that he's here. Senator?
Thank you, Jim. It's wonderful to see such a lively crowd here after 15 months, 16 months of not seeing anybody in this room, and the thousands of people who no doubt are tuned in over YouTube right now in the village. Mr. Moulton, it's wonderful to see you, and I'm delighted at the mayor's invitation to be here and say a few kind words that are so, there's not enough that can be said about what you've done. Sometimes perspective is important. 26 years may seem like just a number to a lot of people. I've been alive for 33 years. You were mayor for almost as long as I've been alive, back when you were serving. And yes, I know there's going to be a dedication here, and this is wonderful. I hope I didn't ruin a surprise. I suspect we probably could piece together what was going on here. Yeah, right. But I really want to remark upon, this is wonderful and has served the village for so long, this building. But I want to remark upon Donahue Park, because the waterfront, I believe, is your legacy. And already it has served generations, and that park will outlive you and be your legacy for hundreds of years, not decades, hundreds of years in this village, and will provide enjoyment and recreation and beauty for generation after generation after generation of the residents of Cornwall and Hudson and the town of Cornwall. And so on behalf of all the people that I represent in this community and beyond, I want to express my gratitude and thanks for your service during your time and for the many decades and then some beyond your time. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And now, representing Assemblyman Colin Schmidt is Sean from his office, who is going to read a proclamation as well.
Thank you for having me. I'm here representing Assemblyman Colin Schmidt, and on behalf of the 150 members of the New York State Assembly and 133,000 residents of the 99th Assembly District, I'd like to present to you with this citation on behalf of the Assemblyman. Thank you for everything you have done for the village of Cornwall and Hudson, and you definitely have impacted so many lives.
So now I know that when you do emceeing like this, that you're always at risk of leaving somebody out when you go around and try to pick people out of the room and make mention of them in the moment. So I'm going to make a major faux pas here by doing this. But I'd like to point out that, let's see, I've got former mayors here, Joseph Gross. I've got former mayor Brendan Coyne. I've got current town supervisor and former village Cornwall and Hudson board member Dick Randazzo. And now I'm looking through making sure. And I've also got former village trustee for the village of Cornwall and Hudson, Bill Fogarty, Howard Trotter, who, am I missing somebody? I'm sorry. Mr. Hahn, I'm sorry. You see that? I'm like one of those really bad people like in 2021 where you're shaking somebody's hand, you're already looking over to see who else is there. So much of my apologies. Rudy Hahn, who also was a member of the Village Board of Trustees during Mayor Moulton's term. Howard Trotter, who served as his consigliere, as we say in Sicilian, but in actuality, the attorney for the village at that time. Yep, I'm getting back there. Eugene Randazzo's in the back, who served, was it 8 years on the village board, Huge, for the Cornwall of Hudson during Mayor Moulton's term as mayor. Am I missing anyone else on the elected side? I think I've got everybody. There's a former police chief here, Charlie Williams, Paul Arteta, who worked with me in Newburgh years ago on the law enforcement side, who was also the deputy chief in Montgomery, is here. I hope I'm not missing anybody else. Obviously, I'm going to get to the family in a second, but I think I've got everybody. All right. So the next thing that I'd like to do is I would like to ask the board members and anybody else that would like to say, take a minute or two just to reflect on their time. I never had a chance to serve with Mayor Moulton, but his legacy, as Senator Skoufis pointed out, he cast a large shadow. I lived in the village from 67 to 71. I didn't get a chance to meet him. He got here in 1972, and we had already left to go to the Deep South. When I came back in the 90s, he was the mayor at that time. I didn't know him. I didn't talk to him. I just knew that things were running smoothly. And obviously, he was mayor until 2007 for an incredible 26 years. So we are privileged to have him here. And for those that have worked with him, if they want to say a few words, I'd love to turn him over to you now to do that. But I'm going to first start by putting on the spot Deputy Mayor Jim Kane.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Ed, because about a little bit over 11 years ago when I decided to run, I met with Ed down in the Hudson Street Cafe, and I was having breakfast, and I said, Mayor, do you have any sage advice on running? And he said, yes, just don't do it. He's like, it's just much easier if you don't. So that being said, he did give me some good advice, was, look, if you're going to go in, you got to go all in. And you just have to work hard, and you've got to get out there and meet people. And that's what I followed. So I enjoy my time on the board, and I wish I had the opportunity to serve under you, Ed. And I just want to say on behalf of the previous trustees, but I'm sure we'll say something, an honor to be here tonight. And thank you so much for what you've done for the village and the village residents. And you'll be forever remembered for, as Senator Skoufis said, Donahue Waterfront and the building. And thank you again. We really appreciate it.
All right, I'm not gonna put anybody else on the spot except for one person, and she's gonna kill me tomorrow when she sees me, but I am going to just ask, and I know I'm putting her on the spot, you're never supposed to do that, but I know that there are a few people that have worked in this village or served this village for as long and overlap enough of us talking political heads. But I wanted Mayor Moulton to know that Jean was more excited about this than anybody else, that all the magic behind what you're gonna see tonight was her doing, nobody else's. And Jean, I'm not gonna make you say anything, but I'm just gonna say, I know you mean the world to him and you mean the world to us, so thank you. All right, is there anybody else that would like to say anything before I bring the mayor up? Yes, sir, Mr. Potter, come on up, just step up here. This is called a PTZ camera. I'm throwing my knowledge out here, even though I don't know any of the technical aspects, but it pan tilts and zooms, so when you talk, it's gonna pick you up.
Okay. I had the distinct privilege of working with Ed as his counsel for many years, 25 of the 26 years that he served. And it was a real labor of love because Ed felt so strongly about the community that I had just recently moved into, that it was really inspirational to me. He was also very creative and was always looking for ways to improve and enhance the quality of life in the village. The infrastructure investments that he made back then are still being enjoyed dramatically by people today. When it came to rebuilding the water lines, rebuilding the sewer lines, rebuilding the streets, rebuilding the sidewalks, creating more green space on 218. We lost some parking spaces, but we gained a streetscape that has trees and greens. He acquired the parking lot, the municipal lot. The list goes on and on, from the investments in the filter plant to trying to get the aqueduct tap improved, enhancing that facility, to doing the reservoirs and getting that facility up and running. The list really goes on and on. He touched our lives in so many ways that it was a real privilege to help him try to accomplish all the goals that he set forth that did improve the quality of life for us all here. So thank you, Ed.
All right, are there any other trust? Supervisor Randazzo, by all means. I didn't want to put you on the spot too, but you know I was coming to you.
Not when it comes to Ed. Ed, I got the memo about the uniform with the blue jacket. Just want to let you know. But you know, Howard listed all projects and all, and it's all important. I mean, that's what really makes a community. It makes it tick, it makes it work, and we all appreciate that. But from a personal standpoint, I know Ed and Rudy got on the village board as trustees in 1977, I think it was. I got on the first time in 1978, so I had a chance to serve with Ed for that 1 year. Then Ed did not run for re-election, so he was off as trustees. And as usual, I ran for re-election and I lost the first time. So I came back the following year, and actually Ed and I appeared on the village ticket in 1981. Ed was running for mayor, and I had been out of office for a year, and I was running as trustee, and lo and behold, we both won. So it was great to be back in, and I mean, I've always said, and I've shared with Ed, sometimes the best experience you have is when you lose, especially early on, because you understand exactly what's important and you have a lot better perspective on what you're doing and how you're going to do it. But it's always nice to come back, because you also find that if you really want to make a real difference in a community, it's nice to be in an elected position where you get to vote and make decisions for the good of the community and all. So Ed, I went on in November of '81. I left you in the village. I went on and became town supervisor for the first time. And the thing that we've had is a good working relationship all the years that you were mayor and I was supervisor. And on a personal standpoint, we really had a great personal relationship and be able to have a dialogue and communicate about so many things and all. But a couple years ago, I think the last time I got reelected 2 years ago, Ed and I were up at the library, and he said to me, how many years is it? I said, well, it's 24. I said, this term will be 26. He said, no, he said, I have 26. He said, but the difference is, he says, I have 26 consecutive years. I had 26 years over a 40-year span, which is okay because it just shows determination and willingness to get back into the fight and do what you have to do. But Ed, I just want to tell you, you've always been a stand-up guy. You know, everything that I've seen with you, working with you, has been a pleasure. The community has benefited greatly with your leadership over that 26 years. And as a resident serving in all the volunteer positions and everything, I think we all have a debt of gratitude that we owe to you. And I just want to congratulate you and wish you many years of happiness and success, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Is there anybody else that wants to say anything? Anybody else that worked with Mr. Moulton or anybody else that knows him and wants to say anything? Yes, sir, Mayor Coyne.
So Ed helped me a great deal. When I first became mayor 10 years ago, he was a mentor to me, and I called him all the time on personnel issues, on policy issues, and I owe him a great deal. He was my mentor even right up to through the Donahue Farm purchase. I've purchased a few homes in my time, but I've never purchased a farm before. And I had a hard time finding an appraiser. And Ed gave me a name, and that name led to another name. And so we owe him, the village owes him another debt of gratitude for helping to secure the farm. One thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is the Public Works building on Shore Road. And I've been around the county quite a bit now, visiting village DPW buildings and town DPW buildings. It's one of the best. It's one of the best. And for the first year and a half of my time, I had a fight to get it back open, but we did get it open. The things that have been mentioned in regard to the beauty of the village, we owe a great deal to Ed for that. As James said, the park is his legacy, and it's a beautiful park. Last year, we had everyone in the world coming to that park during COVID, but we managed that, and I thank you, Ed, for all that you've done for me and the village. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mayor Coyne. Anybody else want to say anything before we do our formal ceremony here? All right. Well, there's a couple things that I just want to point out to you if you didn't see it on the way in. One of the things that we did, and I want to thank our village DPW and our village clerk for making sure that this happened, but there is a sign, there's signage over the door as you come into the boardroom there, and it's in the Cornwall colors and the same type of style as the Village Hall Police Department signs that are, and the boardroom signs that are out front on Village Hall. So we're trying to keep everything kind of, you know, historically tied in with the way the village would originally set this building up when Mayor Moulton moved in. The second thing is this podium. So as we're moving forward now and Mayor Moulton is seeing how we're trying to, kicking and screaming, we're entering the 21st century. We're now starting to live stream our meetings. I immediately wanted to have some place where citizens could come up and petition the board and be able to exchange with the board and the attorney for the village. And I mentioned it, and Dave Halverson said, I got a guy. And so this podium right here, and Mayor Moulton, this is part of your legacy because it's one of the things we wanted to have done for this meeting. This podium was built by Luis De La Cruz, who's one of our DPW folks, handcrafted. He saw a picture of it online, and then he built it himself. He figured out the specs to it and built it himself. The sign over the door there, and now really most importantly, and before I have you come up and do the official ribbon cutting, is the photo, which is going to be obviously of Mayor Moulton that is going to go where that naked hook is on the wall over there. And so Mayor Moulton, if I can have you and your son step forward. I know, you look at the wall over there and it's like watching The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, right? They took everything off the walls, even the stockings. So if I can have you step up here, Mayor Moulton, right around to the front so that the camera can pick you up with your son. And before you cut that, Your son's gonna step over here with you. Before you cut that, I'm gonna show the photo that's gonna be here, and then I'm gonna ask the mayor and everybody who served with him, all former trustees or mayors of the village, to come up, and I want Mayor Moulton for, well, I hope it's not the last time, but for the next to the last time, I want you to be seated up here and we'll get a picture. So without further ado, I'm gonna have you go ahead and cut the ribbon. I got you some nice garden shears there. Got it right in the middle there. Trust me, you're not the only one. Gene did not let me play with those today, and I wanted to. So without further ado, here's the photo. It says on it, Edward C. Moulton Jr., Village Mayor, 1981 to 2007, dedicated on June 21st, 2021. All right, if I could get everybody that served with Mayor Moulton or who served on the village board in any capacity at any time to please come up to the dais of Mayor Moulton. I want you to come take a seat here. He can come this way. I'll bring him around this way. Come on, sir. Why don't you step here? All right. Yep, let's get all the trustees and former mayors. You're gonna sit right here, sir. There you go. I'm gonna have you squeeze right in there because you're gonna sit right there in the front.
Okay.
All right. Come on. And I'm gonna give you this right there. And anybody who served with him, come on, Mr. Fogby, Mr. Hahn, Mr. Rendazzo. And I got the rest of the board, come on up with him. And Mayor Gross, come on up. I want everybody. We'll take a quick picture, and then before you get him, wait, Jace, I got one more coming up. And then I think Mayor Moulton is gonna say a few words. Got it? All right.
Why not?
You can do it there. You can do it at the podium. You want to do it right there? You want the podium? Come on. All right. Podium. I'll help you guys.
It's probably easier.
Yep.
How you doing?
You know these guys. This is a Randy bunch is all I'm going to say. But then again, you see who I serve with, so.
You kind of watch Fogarty.
Oh, that's the one. All right, right here. You want to come around here? Yep. I'm going to bend that down for you. I'm going to get out of your way. All right. You're right here. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Hahn. All right, sir.
I was delighted to be able to say a few words here in this conserver here. We're into. When we put this building together, it was in bad shape, and we worked hard, and it's a beautiful building inside and out. And let's see. As you said, it's been a long time and a lot of work, as many for so many years. I want to thank you again and all the people that have helped me get to a good amount for all the years, many years that I served. So thank you, and thank you again.
All right, so you are welcome to stick around for the root canal with no Novocaine that comes with my meetings. But I just want to say this is going to conclude the ceremonial portion. I appreciate everybody from Senator DeScufas to all the folks and friends and former trustees and the town supervisor and former mayors that made the point of coming out here, and certainly Mr. Brennan, who made us proud. Thank you so much. So that concludes the formal portion. We're going to reconfigure here in about 5 minutes and get started with the rest of the meeting. Thank you for coming.
How you been?
Yes.
Hello, William.
I'm Jean Mahoney. Oh. Right there.
And you know what? You said you're really babbling for hours. All right, you've been warned. If you're in here for the next 2 minutes, you're gonna get stuck listening to me. You've been warned.
I almost did.
Does it mean you have to record? All right, I just go on that. Or is it just easier?
It's easier. I can stop in this a lot easier than that. Yeah, I was not prepared. I was going to come across the day as such.
Oh, my wife would have killed me for that.
You took your life in your hands.
But did you see the way I pivoted? Because that's what a good guy that's done TV knows how to do. I looked over and I went, we're not going to do that. We're going to figure something else out.
Change your life.
Yep. Sometimes you got to adjust on the fly. Oh, what the heck? It's when you pick up on something. All right. Now, do we do public comment at the top?
You know what that was, Joe?
We are, yes, we are going to do the public hearing continuation
Okay.
and then public comment.
Okay.
So we have to continue.
We got to do that first. Okay.
Trust us. All right. The garbage truck down here. Dumped in there.
Who's this gentleman right here? Who's this gentleman? Just
Another one on Hollow.
I can't remember his name. What's Jerry Gate? Which one?
Is Rich not here today?
He told me he was going to be late because he had something to do with his son. So,
Okay.
he told me he was going to be late. All right, 2-minute warning. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. He had something with his son. He told me he was going to be late. So. Yes, and Jean, thank you for that. Jean, I don't need to reopen the meeting or anything like that, correct? Okay.
Somebody on the
committee, maybe? Yeah, I'll tell you later. Okay, without further ado, we are now going to move into the business of the Village of Cornwall and Hudson. And the first thing on the agenda, if you grabbed an agenda when you came in, is the continuation of the public hearing, local law number 3 of 2021, to establish regulations for the short-term rental of residential dwellings. Okay, so the law is not this thick, but this is the thickness of written comment and notes and research that the board has done and the board has received in regards to this law that we are going to shortly pass. However, We received some feedback that we felt as a board needed to be vetted and needed to be explored. And there might be some revisions, not might, there will be some revisions that need to be made to the structure of the law as we've currently drafted it. Now, I know what that means. So we're going to close the public hearing tonight on the original draft law that many folks have already had a chance to take a look at. And if you haven't, you can find it on our village website. And then we are going to direct the attorney for the village to draft us a law that contains some of the revisions that the Board of Trustees concur are valid revisions and changes. And when I say, are they substantive? These are tweaks, but they're substantive enough tweaks that we felt the righteous thing to do was to unfortunately push this to the right. Now, it'd be wonderful to get a law in the books, but in our discussions, we recognize that this is a deliberative process. And my initial inclination was, let's get a law in the books and then go back and fix it. But there are things that we want to take a look at. We want to tweak and change and fix before we actually put it forward for public comment again, have another public hearing, and then vote or pass a resolution to put the law into effect. So did I cover that all right there, Deputy Mayor?
Now you just have to open up for public comment.
Gotcha. And then open it up for public comment. So if anybody has any desire to speak to the law as currently written, you're welcome to do so. We would ask that you step to the podium now so that you can be picked up on the live stream. State your name, your address, and whatever you want to say about the short-term rental law. Okay? I see that there is nobody that is going to speak. So
I'll make a motion to close the public comment period, the public hearing with respect to local law number 3 of 2020.
second. Any further
All-
discussion? All in favor? Aye.
And Mr. Mayor, based upon your comments and the comments we've received from the trustees, I think your intention is to presently adopt a resolution where the board will designate itself as lead agency pursuant to SECRA, designate the proposed amended local laws an unlisted action under SECRA, and schedule a public hearing on that for the July meeting. And if you put that in the form of a resolution, I can provide a written resolution to the clerk tomorrow.
Okay. You want to try to put that into
Yeah.
a resolution for me?
So, yeah, so I'll make a motion to have a public hearing on July 26th is our next meeting, July 26th. With respect to local law number 3 of 2021, the establishment of regulations for short-term rental of residential dwellings, the village being the lead agency pursuant to SECRA, designating the village as the lead agency, and also scheduling a public hearing on the 26th. Am I missing anything, Joe? I think that's it.
The board will be the lead agency. It will be an unlisted action under
Unlisted action,
SECRA.
designated as an unlisted action.
And you'll have a public hearing on the local law on that date to review both the law and any potential adverse environmental impacts of the law on that July date.
Amended as council just stated. I'll make that motion again. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Mr. McKay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kane. And I hope everybody understands, we're just trying to get this right. My policy is usually don't let excellent be the enemy of damn good. But in this instance, it makes sense just to get this thing right before we put it up and to be voted on before we enact it. We want to get it as right as possible. Okay, the next order of business is going to be just general public comment. So if anybody has a desire to speak to the board about any topic, they can do so. Just step to the microphone at the podium, state your name and your address for the record. Anybody wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the trustees, thank you for at least entertaining our conversation. I want to talk about other business, Maple Avenue property. My name is Jerry Gage,
And your address, please.
17 Maple Avenue.
Perfect.
I've lived there for over 50 years.
So you're not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere, James.
are.
Exactly. We were very concerned to hear that the property was once again up for sale, or potentially up for sale. This happened once before with us about 10 years ago. We went through this same process before. Just a few things. I think most of our neighbors, even though we were divided about whether it should be residential or stay in the village hands, agree on one thing. There has to be a turnaround at the end of Maple Avenue. Absolutely, positively a turnaround that'll accommodate a garbage truck, those large Amazon trucks that now deliver to the post office every day, several times a day, and they use the turnaround at the water department at the end of the block for their turnaround, as do many business trucks that come there and deliver to the ice cream shop and other places. They all use that as a public turnaround up there. The only option they have, if that should be closed off because it becomes a house of residence, would be our driveways, and that's no option at all. I've already had my car hit in my driveway by someone turning around in my driveway who came in, lights flashing through my living room, and suddenly I heard a bang, went outside, and my car was struck from behind in the driveway. They immediately backed out and sped away. There's frequent turnarounds in the driveways of residents on Maple Avenue. There has to be, unless you plan to put a cop up there to enforce that, that turnaround is essential to any plan going forward, at least for the residents of Maple Avenue. For a dead-end street, there's more traffic on Maple Avenue than probably any other street in the district. We have elementary schools, morning and afternoon, parents drop off, they park along Maple Avenue, pick their kids up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Post office people who are running in, they pick up their mail, they turn into Maple Avenue, pick up their mail, drive up the street to the turn around, and drive back out. People who are going to the dance studio, the parents are dropping their kids off for a dance studio. They drive into Maple Avenue where it's just easy for their kids to access without crossing a major street. They let their kids out, drive up Maple Avenue to the end of the block, use that for a turnaround before they leave. I've talked to other people in the village who live on dead-end streets, and the one recurring nightmare for them is because trucks, mainly the garbage trucks, can't turn around, they have to back out the entire length of the street. Bang, 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 the entire way at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm 76 years old. I don't want to be hearing bank, bank, bank in the morning at 5 o'clock. So whatever you decide to do with that property, one thing is absolutely essential, at least for me, and that is to make sure that there's a potential turnaround there that a big truck can handle, a delivery truck or a garbage truck. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Gage. And as you know, we had and I'm just going to say this for public edification, we had a meeting when this first became a topic and something of interest to me and to the board. And the reason that there was an interest in this was in trying to figure out a plan to go forward with some capital infrastructure improvements and looking for things that we could do without raising taxes to do that. One of the things was a municipal building that has been in our care for almost 100 years, I believe. Mike, how long we own that property? Going back as before you were water superintendent, but ways back. And trying to figure out the best value and would it make sense for the village to explore that as a means to use for seed money to replace infrastructure that is crumbling and that is in need of desperate repair. Having done that, and my commitment to the Maple Avenue and to the Duncan Avenue folks, because it impacts them too, those that have driveways that open up onto the Maple Avenue side, was a full commitment to not do anything, to not move forward and do a thing without full transparency. And I think it was about 9 folks. I think Mrs. Gage was there, spoke very eloquently as well. In regards to what their positions were. I promised them transparency, I promised them no rush job, and I promised input from them, meaning I want to hear what's important to you. They want the character of their neighborhood not to be changed, but I'm sitting on a piece of property. The village is sitting on a piece of property that has value. And if I have to, we as a board have to figure out a way to start to replace pipes that were put in place in the 1960s and the 1950s, I just have to do due diligence. But I give you my word, Mr. Gage, and I'll let the other members of the board speak to this if they care to as well, that I will do this every step of the way with full transparency, making sure that you guys have a representative come to our meetings. I've offered that, and to meet with you privately and make sure that we're not doing anything, that we're not talking to the community and to the neighborhood before we do it. All right? I hope that's fair. That's the best I can do at this juncture. Is there, you'd like to speak to this too?
I would.
Well,
Actually,
just need you to step up to the microphone, just state your name and your address for the record. and you
hi,
can be
Karen
heard.
Magavro, and it's 31 Duncan Avenue. So I'm on the Duncan side. I actually have two letters here. I have one from myself and my husband Greg, and then I have a note from the Bouchers as well that they had emailed and asked me, and they are at, what is their address? 25 Duncan Avenue for Tim and Millie Boucher. And Tim and Millie Boucher just wanted to say their piece is that building a single-family home would far outweigh the pros versus the cons for them, because it does keep Maple as a neighborhood. And with an appropriate turnaround and a dead-end sign, it would help lessen the traffic. It would be safer for our kids, and it removes the kind of kicking the ball forward with, like he said, it was 10 years ago, they looked at selling it, not selling it, and it would just put an end to that situation. And their backyard is right across from that piece of property, and they see it and hear it daily, obviously. I mean, that's their driveway. They're right there. So that's from Tim and Millie Boucher, and I don't know if you want me to email this or hand it, or whichever is better.
Best.
Email you?
Email would be
Okay,
perfect.
I'll email you mine as well. And then my husband, Greg, and I, we had the pleasure of moving in and being new members of the community last year, and we love the neighborhood. Our neighbors are fabulous. It's a quiet, enjoyable neighborhood with families, and we really did appreciate meeting with you on the 8th, and the transparency and the openness. We're all about it and want to continue that conversation with you. Our personal preference is a single-family home as well, because our property, our driveway is the head of Maple Drive to pull out it, and our entire backyard is the entire piece of the property. So we live it, see it, all day, every day. Of course, we would rather not have a large turnaround or anything built, because we'd like our property line to stay the way it is and not necessarily have to worry about having the village, take some of that property, because we are of the mind as well, if you build it, they will come. And if you make it super big and super easy, then we may be encouraging more traffic instead of less traffic on Maple. And the amount of traffic is insane on Maple. I would invite anybody to come hang out in my backyard. I'll serve up cookie and tea, and you can sit and just watch all day long, the trucks and the parents and the zooming down the street.
Do you still access that property from Maple also?
Yes, I do.
So Maple and Duncan?
Maple and Duncan, yes, I do. I do appreciate that. And yeah. Yeah, our hopes is that it just goes to a single family home. And if we could, we would like to request the request for proposal be done, so that the community can know who's trying to purchase the property. And I don't know all the ins and outs of the legalities of keeping it from becoming any type of a business or any type of a multifamily home. I just don't feel that it would be a great fit for our community back in our little nick of Cornwall. So
Absolutely.
that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your engagement as well, Mr. Gages. And to your point, I think I've been there now since this was first proposed, maybe 10 or 11 times, to meet with people individually there and just have conversations in the street. And what you're speaking to happened in front of me, so multiple times. I get it. I understand. I promise you transparency going forward, and I'll turn it over and see if any of the other board members. Jim?
I think Mr.
Oh, I'm
Chaudhry
sorry,
would
Mr.
like to say
Chaudhry.
Thank you. Vishwa Chaudhary, 13 Bar Avenue. So just to second what Jerry's saying, I'm on a dead-end street and I'm not home 10 hours. So the rest of the time, the Amazon traffic has, I don't know, how would I say, the time that I am home is 10 times, 10 trucks. I'm talking all the way till 9:30. I see the same truck because I can't miss anything. I can see the same truck come back within half hour. It's this problem is, I'm all for big business, I mean, the commerce and all that. But this is really becoming a problem. And also my street fortunately has just enough room for the garbage trucks to turn around. So we don't have the problem of garbage truck backing out. And I'm very thankful for my DPW workers who do it very gently. But the Amazon and the post office, traffic is out of control. I think it's happening on every dead-end street. So we should start getting ready for some kind of control on this, hours or time of the day or something. They're coming all the way till 9:30, 10, Sundays. They're coming on Sundays, all the way right at the dinner time. And has anyone heard the Amazon truck backing up? It's not a pleasant sound.
Sounds like a duck, I think.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, I mean, it speaks to that delicate balance. I mean, this is 2021. We want to order something at 6 o'clock in the morning and have it delivered on our doorstep by 7 o'clock at night. And that causes just an influx of this. But these are all great points, and I'll turn it over to anybody else on the board that wants to speak to it.
No, I just, thank you, Mr. Gage, for coming. I knew the street was busy. I walk my dogs down that way every morning and every evening. I just didn't know the amount. When you started picking out I wasn't thinking about the dance school. I was thinking mainly about the post office, and I've seen the trucks move up there. So thank you for that. That was that was eye-opening, as well as you, ma'am. So I don't need to repeat anything else. He's got it down, complete transparency. We're gonna go in the right direction. We'll be fine.
Dave? Bill?
When I drove down Maple Avenue and turned around at the Water Department building to look at it because I knew of the issue, Jerry caught me, as I was driving back down. He was walking out and spotted me, so we had a chat. So I'm one of the, I'm a symptom and I was over there to look at it. So yeah, I concur that we'll make sure that we're transparent in how we go forward with it, for sure.
Thank you, guys. All right, any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Bridget Flynn. I live in Cornwall on Hudson. And I didn't mean to.
Need your street address.
I am not really prepared to do this, but seeing that I'm in the building, I figured I might as well do it now and get it over with.
Ms. Flynn, just need your
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just need your street address.
9 Vinebrook Avenue,
Okay.
Cornwall on Hudson. Mine is a different issue from what we've just been discussing, is the water issue. It's my water bill. I find that my water and my sewer are half of the garbage. The garbage is $79. Now, I'm a widow, I live alone, and I don't have much garbage. I could actually take the garbage myself out to Orange County. It's only 2 bags, not much. And I'm wondering if there's any way that you could exempt me because I'm a widow and the wife of a veteran. And I really feel that, it's a lot for one person. And I don't know how many more widows there are in the village. There's probably quite a lot. But I, for one, would like you to consider what you could do for me, because I know my bill every month is $144 or $150, as you can see, I was talking to one lady, she says her bill's over 300. So I said, well, I don't have children and everything else, and that's how my bill is the way it is. So if there's some way you could give me a senior citizen discount like you do on our permits and all of the other stuff the town does for us, I'd appreciate it. There's one other thing I'd like to say thank you for in the village. I called a couple of weeks back just before the school board was having its elections. And I called Jeannie, the clerk, and I asked her about all of the signs that are placed in our village, which we are exempt. I don't know if the public knows that we had a law during Moulton's time. I don't know if it's still on the books, that no signs of any kind are to be placed, commercial signs, whatever, in around the village area, because it's a nice park. We want to keep it, the village that it is. And when people put up signs, they forget to take them down. This past election, there were so many in the center of our village, it was deplorable. And thank God when I called, Jeannie made me, told me we're taking care of it, which they did. But then we had the local vendor here. I was driving my car up from River Road, and there's this big sign in the middle of the road. So there was no traffic behind me, so I stopped. And here it is, an advertisement for kayaking on the Hudson River. Right in the middle of the road, a big, ugly, come on, give me a break. Do we have to advertise in the middle of the street? It's getting to be, I really feel that we should announce either in the Cornwall Local that there is a law in the village about these signs. It makes the village look cheap and dirty and everything else. So please, I want to say thank you for the action and what have you. And that's it. I didn't mean to be up here tonight. I wasn't ready for this. I decided I'd do it another time, but I was talking to the waterman, and he said, hey, it's not on him, it's on the board. So,
That's what the
all
waterman
right.
said to you?
Pardon me? Mr. Halverson. He's a good man. I asked him what he could do about my sewer, about the garbage.
All right.
Because he's the garbage man.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All right. And only because this is of general information purposes and it makes sense, I'll speak to the first one that you mentioned about the garbage pickup. I have asked the DPW superintendent, and he is working on this, to go back and to review all of our domiciles and businesses in Cornwall and Hudson and make certain that what we are charging people for garbage pickup is commensurate with what they have, because mistakes can happen, and sometimes people get billed and the cost and the amounts do not change for years or decades. We are looking at that. We're going to make certain that a single-family dwelling that's a 3-bedroom on Vinebrook is paying the right rate for a single-family dwelling in the residential district. We're looking at all the businesses. We're looking at all the residences. I will get back to you on that, okay? But we will revisit that. Secondly, you brought up the question, which it came to us last week from someone else. You do have the right to exempt yourself out of the village DPW, our sanitation workers picking up your garbage. But you have to come before the board, and you have to have an approved, certified carter that's going to do it. And you can't say, as other people have said, because I've heard this, well, I'll just take my garbage out and I'll dump it on my own. It just doesn't work that way with our code. We can allow you to be exempted out. Jean, you stop me if I'm speaking wrong. but not private residences. So I'm being corrected, and that's why she sits here and I just do the flapping of gums. For businesses, we allow them to exempt themselves out if they have a private carting company that they bring forward and they present to the board that that's what they would like, and we do allow that. We do not allow that for private residences. So what I can do is just make sure that you're paying the right amount for your house and you're not being overcharged. Is that fair?
Whatever you can do to help us,
We're-
I'm on a budget,
we're-
I'm fixed income,
We- We will absolutely do that because as you pointed out at the top, it doesn't just affect you, it affects a lot of other people as well. Regarding the political signs, we are going to do a better job, and that's on me, to make certain that before the next election, whether it's a village board election or it's a school board election, that we make sure that we monitor that and make sure that signs are in appropriate places, that they're not on property that they're not supposed to be on. I mean, there's some vagaries and some gray areas in the law, as I learned as I was looking through this, but I promise you we'll do a better job of being more diligent on that before the next election, okay? All right, anybody else in public comment? You will have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to do the same. So moving along, we are going to, the minutes, correct? Yep. So I am going to make a motion to accept the May 17th, 2021 business meeting minutes as presented. May I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. I'm also going to make a motion to accept the June 14th, 2021 special meeting minutes as presented. May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to the treasurer's report. The open utility balances report for the end of May read as follows. Village water, sewer, garbage, and penalties, $189,773.84. Town water and penalties, $433,528.23. Yeah, okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve the June 2021 warrant number 6 and authorize payment, including the prepaids totaling $367,050.30. May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Do I need to do this, any of that? Okay. All right, so moving along, we'll move to the board department reports. Trustee Carnwright, could I have you do the building department and code enforcement report?
Village of Cornwall and Hudson Building Department report for April 2021. Building permits issued, 26. Certificate of compliance occupancy issued, 10. On-site inspections, 58. Violations, 6. Stop work orders, 0. Municipal searches, 3. Solar panels, 0. Fire inspections, 4. Update. In July, the Insurance Service, ISO, will be evaluating the village's code enforcement department. It evaluates how we enforce the building codes with special emphasis on mitigation of losses from natural hazards. It is widely accepted that municipalities with well-enforced building codes demonstrate lower property damage losses through safer, more resilient buildings and properties. Additionally, ISO also rates current municipal fire protection and says that by classifying communities' ability to suppress fires, it helps the communities evaluate the public fire protection services. The program provides an objective, countrywide standard that helps fire departments in planning and budgeting for facilities, equipment, and training. And by securing lower fire insurance premiums for communities with better public protection, the intent is that the program provides incentives and rewards for communities that choose to improve their firefighting services. We will be meeting with an ISO rep in July to update and complete the survey, and at some point ISO will determine if there's a change or do we remain as a Class 4 municipality. Light meter and sound meter were purchased and now available to better assess complaints. William Horton, Code Enforcement Officer.
Hey, Chief, where do we stand on the light meter testing? Have you, I know you were gonna take a look at doing that at night. Are we out of whack on that in regards to people that are in violation, or are we doing okay with the way the current lighting law is written?
So I made a trip down Hudson and assessed some of the more brighter properties One of the things I found was there's a little bit of difficulty in filtering out, say, streetlights, which are, the machine is very sensitive and picks up down to 1 lumen. So trying to filter out the streetlight as opposed to so I actually took a piece of cardboard and was trying to hold it in place and probably looked like an idiot in Hudson Street in the middle of the night, but, so we're working towards making a true assessment of the light trespass that comes off the properties. I did speak to one of our residents today, who's one of the residents who's having an issue. And right now, luckily, the foliage in place has kind of limited the impact of the light trespass. So I spoke to her, and we're gonna make another assessment at a later time, later in the evening. So I was out between, say, 10:30 and 11:30. I'm gonna try to get out after midnight when things even darken down a little bit more.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Fire Department, Deputy Mayor Kane.
Okay, for May 2021, they had a total of total volunteer hours of 467, quite a bit of hours. Some of the highlights, they responded to 5 medical calls, 3 hazardous conditions, 2 motor vehicle accidents, and 5 drills. They also put in quite a bit of time for the Memorial Day parade and work details. Firefighter Yang, Stork, and Donovan completed interior firefighting operations class. Lieutenant Trainer and firefighter Charles Quinn completed New York State EMT basic training course. Hey, Chief, where does that occur?
That class was held at Mobile Life, but it can happen at the Orange County Fire Training Center also.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Power Ladder 413 is out of service for maintenance, and it's in annual testing and certification. And the good news, back to normal, the 70th annual Summer Fair is going to take place July 21st through the 24th. Live music, games of chance, a carnival, and the fireworks display on July 24th. That's outstanding news. Thank you very much. And that's it. Respectfully, Mike Trainer. Thank you.
All right, Police Department, Trustee Brain.
Good evening. The monthly police report for the month of May, May 1st through May 31st, there were 446 total calls for service. I'm pleased to report there were no felony crimes reported and no arrests reported. In the misdemeanor column, there were 2 counts of criminal mischief, 1 of petty larceny, and 1 of harassment or aggravated harassment. Vehicle and traffic, there was 1 personal injury accident, 2 property damage accidents, 20 summonses issued, 11 traffic warnings issued, 5 parking summons issued, 15 traffic enforcement posts, and 2 speed and radar sign postings. In terms of responding to non-criminal activity, there were 5 fire response calls, 1 domestic incident, 7 alarm response calls, 2 noise complaints, 1 suspicious person call, 6 suspicious vehicle calls, 4 suspicious activity calls, 5 animal complaints, 1 disorderly adult call, and 1 disorderly juvenile call. They assisted local departments 6 times with the Town of Cornwall Police Department, 15 times with EMS, other agencies once, other police agencies once. They performed 1 welfare check. They assisted 2 citizens, and there were no assistance for other village departments such as DPW, water, or buildings. During the month, the police department participated in Orange County Stop DWI traffic grant funding enforcement. At the June work session last week, Chief Dixon did a brief presentation on quotes that he received from 2 vendors for body cameras to be worn by police officers. We reviewed those estimates and came up with a preliminary preference, I believe. There were a couple of events down at the waterfront and in the village where the police department assisted with traffic enforcement and just safety of the participants. That was the ballet company was down at the waterfront, and the Girls on the Run event was a big success with the police department maintaining safe space on the roads for the girls to run. And I believe that the department is pursuant to the Police Reform Collaborative is going to engage in implicit bias training, which is being arranged with a local trainer who lives here in the village of Cornwall on Hudson. And that, some of that was my additions, but respectfully submitted, Chief Stephen Dixon. Chief, did I miss anything or misstate anything?
The only thing I'll make mention of, in the early stages, the Office of Justice recently came out with a body camera grant that I'm gonna be looking into pursuing, see if we could, apply for us and work for us. So I'll keep the board abreast.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Bill. Dave, Department of Public Works.
Village of Cornwall on Hudson, Department of Public Works, May 2021. Trash collected for the month, 127.58 tons. Recycling collected for the month, 33.75 tons. Yard waste collected for the month, 100 yards. Repairs and maintenance of village-owned vehicles and equipment continues. Mowing and trimming of village-owned properties. Sweeping of streets. Boat docks were completed with assistance from the Cornwall Yacht Club. Outside the village hall has been painted, upgraded the front of the hall, wired the village boardroom in preparation for the new live streaming equipment, which our people with Dave's help and leadership did. Assisted police department with traffic control devices for Memorial Day parade. Notes, sidewalk replacement of damaged sections has begun. Our 2002 case loader broke down while working on the boulevard, required being towed to the dealer. Being that it's 19 years old, it's time to look into replacing it. Dave Halverson, Superintendent of Public Works.
Excellent. All right, in place of Trustee Gaylord, Deputy Mayor Kane will do the Water Department report.
So the May report, the monthly production is a little bit over 25 million gallons. We average about 811,000 gallons per day. Some highlights, we collected 55 samples with our approved water quality monitoring plan. With respect to treatment, they removed and disassembled the submerged backwash pump at the Catskill filtration plant. With respect to transmission and distribution, they repaired a water main leak at the military academy, and the property owner was responsible. The service line leaks were repaired at 3 Stable Way and 15 Bar Avenue. They repaired curb boxes at 14 Chestnut Street and 13 Wilson, and installed sample station at the Black Rock filtration plant on Peck's Road. With respect to meters, they had 14 final water meter readings were completed, and they replaced 18 residential meters. And lastly, as for property maintenance, they continued mowing of the Black Rock Forest dams and installed a culvert pipe at the driveway to Riley Road. And that's from Chief Trainer. Thanks, Chief.
All right, so that's it for department reports. Now we get into the resolutions. Okay, so as Trustee Brain and I believe the chief mentioned in his addendum to his report, the village board made a decision to outfit our police officers with body cameras. We got quotes. We had the chief go out and talk to 3 different companies. And we debated this. We had the companies come in and talk to us. We discussed it and looked for the best value for what we're looking to do. We're going to be purchasing 6 body-worn cameras. We're going to upgrade them with the magnets, which are the ones that go between the ballistic vest and the officer's uniform shirt, which has much less of a potential for them to be disturbed, like the ones that are on clips that can fall off if something happens, an officer is running or gets into an altercation. These stay affixed pretty well. So the board discussed this. We are going to purchase them. These are Axis W100 body-worn cameras. If anybody's interested, we can certainly make available some of the background on this, or you can Google it. I mean, it's one of the few companies that actually does this. I'm going to make a motion to authorize the purchase of the body camera system from Hudson Valley Computer Guys, including 6 body-worn cameras with magnets, a system controller, charging dock, and 6 camera station device licenses at a cost not to exceed $5,563. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Go ahead, Bill.
Bill?
I would just like to ensure that, or ask the question, I guess it's a point of information perhaps, is the policy for the use and deployment of the body cams. I believe that's, I'd like to make sure that we're aware of that before we authorize the policy, but without interfering with the normal operation of the police department's activities. But that's just something that, I'm not sure that I'm privy enough to for my own comfort. That said, as you'll see, I will vote to make the purchase.
Excellent point, and what Trustee Brain is referring to is the board will be tasked with coming up with the policy. They'll work obviously closely with the chief, and what do I mean by the policy? Storage is a big piece of this. Some police departments only are required to keep and store the videos for 30 days, some for 60, some for 90, some for 120, some for 3 years. Now with storage comes costs, but those are the kind of things that we are going to work with the chief on and develop a policy that Trustee Brain is talking about before our officers are outfitted with these. So we are purchasing them. And then before we go live on those, there will be training for them. The officers will get used to them. And I can tell you, as a person that has spoken to 10 different police chiefs in the area, many of them contiguous to Cornwall, that there was initial resistance from some of the police officers initially. It's the same thing as us up here getting used to the fact that these are hot mics now. Anything we say, even a whisper, gets picked up. And police officers are just like we do. They don't want to go around all day 24/7 or when they're on shift with the camera and the mic going. Well, there will be policy put in place, meaning when an officer responds to a call or some such, before they exit their vehicle, before they show up on scene, the camera gets activated. There are even safety mechanisms in place where if an officer forgets until he gets on scene, there will be video that will be picked up, and we can set that again as the board and with the police chief, 90 seconds, 120 seconds, 2.5 minutes, whatever you want to make it in case somebody gets on scene and realize, oh shoot, I didn't do it. We will go through those. I will flesh this out. I will do the research with the chief, and then we will work on this in a work session with the board to find out what policy works best for this village police department. Did I cover that good enough, Bill, you think? All right, well, I think there was one more thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out for the public, with respect to the company that we're purchasing this from, they're from New Windsor. Some of the
Yes.
considerations were, one, it's a 3-year warranty, 2, they're local, and 3, the gentleman who represented the company, if one of the body cameras goes down, we quickly contact them and they can replace it. So it all added up to convenience as well. And the other point was that we will be storing it on our own computers. Some of the other companies, it was kind of quite a large charge for actually storage of the film. So that being said, we vetted it pretty well, so I'm very comfortable with it.
And we'll be purchasing 6 of them, and you're asking why 6? We have 3 full-time police officers. Each of them will have their own. And then we have 2 for the part-time police officers. So one that's on shift picks one up, the next guy comes in or the next gal comes in and gets the second one, and there's always a spare there in case of a problem with technical glitch or mechanical failure or something like that. And to Trustee Kane's point, we have an intermunicipal agreement with New Windsor for their IT support. They will handle the IT support as part of that agreement for our body cameras. All right, so I believe that was the discussion, and we have not voted yet. So did I get a second?
Yes,
I got a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, I am going to, now this is where we get into the budget amendment piece on how we're going to pay for this. This obviously was not something that was in the budget. It's something that when I came on board on April 5th, it was a priority for me. We had to figure out how we were gonna fund it. I'm gonna make a motion to increase the general fund revenue federal state grants, Alpha 4089, by $5,400. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, this reimbursement was received from the state on a 2017 grant, so a grant from 4 years ago to perform a quiet zone study of the 2 CSX crossings down on Shore Road. So the village essentially got reimbursed for paying for a quiet zone study, and so this is the grant money from that. As Chief pointed out, we are going to actively seek to get grant money from the federal government to pay for our body cameras. Of course, by the time we get paid for it, we'll have already spent the money on it, and it'll go towards something else in a future budget. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to increase the general fund expenditure, police expense line, which is Alpha 3120.4 by $5,400. May I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, I think that is everything. Okay, good. All right, just as an update, the Village Hall security system was upgraded. It was needed and necessary. We now have key fobs that give us access into and out of the building. It makes it more secure, it makes it more efficient. I'm gonna make a motion to accept a proposal from Vector Security to upgrade the security system at Village Hall to include the installation of an NEO with GSM communicator and keypad, 128 zones, keypads that are hardwired, and a zone expander at a cost not to exceed $1,050. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, now the good stuff, which I see there are people here that have been waiting for this. The Donahue Farm Steering Committee appointments. So I can report that the village is now the owner of 48 acres, am I right on that? 47 acres of beautiful, pristine property down off of Bayview. That was the old Doc Donahue Farm. Thank you to Joe. Thank you to the previous village board and to Mayor Coyne, who were the folks that spearheaded this to get this done. I feel like every week we're saying, it's gonna be another 2 weeks, we'll let you know, another 2 weeks. But we finally got the keys to the car, so we do own it. Now, with that comes a lot of responsibility. And what the board decided to do, and I'd like to thank Trustee Brain for doing almost all of the legwork on this and coming up with a plan, was how do you put together a group that is going to steer or advise the board on how best that we should proceed? We all have ideas on what we think should happen there. There's a lot of competing equities. Some people don't want a blade of grass to be stepped on in perpetuity. Other people want, giant stadium north built there. So we have to compete with different equities. We have to make sure we stay within the conservation easements. We have to make sure that we do righteous for this piece of property that is going to be enjoyed not just by our children, but our children's children's children. So the board did vote for a 9-member committee. And of that, I am now going to say that in our last work session, which was last Monday or the Monday before? Last Monday, gosh, these days were running together. The board spoke in executive session and made a determination as a board on the 9-member committee. Now, we had close to, I think we had 25 people that applied and a lot more people that were interested, but had not submitted a formal application that, again, Trustee Brain went through painstakingly. The board reviewed all of them, and then we had a discussion in executive session. So without further ado, I'm going to make a motion to approve the following appointments to the Donahue Farm Steering Committee. Mrs. Maureen Spalding, Mrs. Christy Larkin, Mr. Bill Thompson, Ms. Kara Gilardo, Mrs. Erin Cousins, Mr. Deke Hazarian, Ms. Phyllis Murphy, Mr. Dave Work, and Mrs. Rana Liebert. May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So the way that we're doing this, because a 9-member committee, anything bigger than that would have been unwieldy, but we also had some other things that we wanted to have done. We wanted an advisory committee of some people that knew the village well, knew the property well, and as Trustee Brain said to me, we know that if they speak in the room at one of the meetings, people will get quiet and listen. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna appoint 2 advisory members. The first one is Brendan Coyne, and the second one is Patricia Larkin. May I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And lastly, we thought it was important to have a separate committee. I shouldn't say committee, Bill. How are we describing it? Is it a committee?
I believe it's an ad hoc committee.
That's the word I was looking for.
There's a,
An ad hoc committee that is going to be focused on the historical aspect of this. This is something that we don't want to get ahead of ourselves and do anything and not make sure that we are doing righteous by the unique history there. So for that, I'm going to make a motion authorizing Kathleen Christensen, who is our current village historian, to convene this ad hoc subcommittee, that's the word, of the following people dedicated to historical documentation of the Donahue Farm property, and to help the steering committee reach recommendations for any temporary or permanent uses of the property that relate to any historical artifact, display, or storage, or other matters of historical interpretation. So of this would be, this subcommittee would be Kathleen Christensen, village historian, as the chair, Sally Faith Dorfman Sirota, Susan Camlet, Mary Donahue, and Renita McGinnis. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there you have it. That is our Donahue Farm Steering Committee, and I'd like to say congratulations to the people that stepped up to be a part of it. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. I was gonna say, we'll discuss your fees later. All right, moving along. Chestnut Street and Mill Street water, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, go ahead.
Just that we've prepared some preliminary guidance for the committee, and we'll be disseminating that once the board has looked it over. It doesn't carry the force of law. It's just guidance documentation. So you can expect that if you're here in the room and part of either of those committees, or advisory committee. And we'll get that out to you pretty quickly so that the committee can decide when it's going to meet first and all of those things.
We will certainly make available the village boardroom or any other space that the village has control over for you guys to meet. Once you decide what that schedule is gonna be like, just understand, because I asked the village clerk, you will be subject to open meetings laws. So that means that when you hold your meetings, it will be open to the public. All right? Okay, Bill, anything else on that?
No, sir.
That I missed? Okay. Chestnut Street and Mill Street water main replacements. I'm gonna make a motion to accept the proposal from Pintagaro and Deutsch Consulting Engineers, the engineers for the village, to provide design and Department of Health approval for construction of replacement of village-owned water mains along portions of Chestnut Street in the town of Cornwall at a cost not to exceed $23,700. May I have a second?
Second.
Michael, before any further discussion, is there anything I need to have you add on that?
No, I think that covered everything.
Any further discussion?
Just for the general public to understand that, maybe Mike can explain this a little bit more detail. The idea that we're doing this in conjunction with a town project that's going on, so the general public understands that we're not flying this by ourselves. We're going to be doing this with a project that's going to be being accomplished by the town, and I believe what are they replacing?
Sure. The town of Cornwall is receiving a grant to redo all the sidewalks along Chestnut Street. That street historically has been problematic for the water system. As a matter of fact, we repaired a water leak there, I think, earlier last week. We believe in doing this in conjunction with the town, coordinating with them. There'll be some cost savings on our end. And it's really just, it's the right way to go about things. Close coordination with the other municipality and taking advantage of a situation that may be able to save us some money.
Yeah, just for the record, I believe that the water main is under the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing that's been accomplished in those two areas is the gas main have already been replaced on Mill and Chestnut both. So this should be the final leg of a pretty big infrastructure plan for those two roads.
Thanks, Dave. Anything else? Any other
Yeah,
trustees?
just to
Jim?
add to your motion, two things. One is, it's, the contract is subject, the contract is, two separate contracts, both being, 10 pages, so it should be subject to for the document. And then as well as subject to attorney review.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, before I go on with the next two motions related to the Chestnut Street and Mill Street water main replacements, this is kind of, I know Mr. Gage is not here anymore, but this again goes to what we're looking to do as we get more and more of this old infrastructure that is falling apart or in disrepair. We're trying to put together a plan on how we're gonna fund this and put together, which I've asked Mike to work on, and I've also asked the village engineers to work on, which is putting together a proposal for this capital infrastructure, or capital, I think we're calling it capital improvement plan, which basically is code for all of the water system stuff that we need to fix and repair. So the next one on this, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the inclusion and funding the replacement of Chestnut Street water main within the Cornwall Water District as part of the Town of Cornwall's Chestnut Street Improvement Project. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. And lastly, on this topic, I'm gonna make a motion to accept the proposal from Pintagara and Deutsch Consulting Engineers to provide contract documents, bidding, and the necessary construction management to complete the replacement of village-owned water mains along portions of Mill Street at a cost not to exceed $6,500. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, next on the agenda, St. Thomas Church, a request to waive water penalty charges. So I'm in receipt of a request from St. Thomas Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, right across the street. They are seeking remediation on a water bill. Earlier this year, a leak was discovered in the convent, the old school building, and immediately repaired. They are requesting permission to establish a payment plan. I am going to make a motion authorizing our attorney for the village to draft an agreement for a payment plan for St. Thomas Roman Catholic Church with an administrative fee factored into that. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, Mr. Lancy, I know you've been waiting here patiently. So discussion has taken place over the course of the last couple weeks with Mr. Anthony Lancy, who is the co-owner of the Farmhouse Market located on Main Street in the town of Cornwall. And Mr. Lancy is seeking permission to set up a food truck at Donahue Memorial Park on Movies on the Hudson nights. I think you're also looking to do this for concerts at the gazebo as well?
That
Down at
is
the
correct.
waterfront? Yes. Okay. So I've asked him, and I know this is, normally you would do this in a work session, but because next month and the following month, we're gonna have truncated or combined work sessions and business meetings. I asked him to come to speak to this today also so that we could get this done. But you want to tell the board exactly what you're looking to do and what you've accomplished towards moving toward that goal?
I would like to have the food trailer there and provide food and some soft drinks at the movie nights on the Hudson, the Cornwall and Hudson Bandstand summer concerts, and the special events concerts at Donahue Memorial Park. I mean, that's pretty much the outline of what I've planned. We have approval. We have our last inspection by the town of Cornwall on Wednesday. We already have insurance and Department of Health approval as well.
Okay, so you've gone through the permit process down at the DPW building with the building inspector, correct? You've gotten the Orange County Department of Health has done their inspections, and you're closing the loop on that. You're also going to provide us a certificate of liability insurance, like a hold harmless. Okay. The only thing that's different on here, and this could be my fault, but you mentioned the bandstand up here as well. And I think there's some concerns on the board in regard to the fact the bandstand does not have public facilities. So, for people to use the restroom. And I think that was a consideration.
There's some. One is you already have the businesses that are there. You have ice cream shop, you have Pepitinis, you have painters. So there's sufficient restaurants and places to drink and so forth. So we want to make sure that that the bandstand is supporting those businesses. Down on the waterfront for the special events, the movies on the Hudson, and when we have our concerts down there, not an issue at all.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Trustee Brain or Trustee Carnwright?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You agree too?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
And Mr.
so the
Mayor-
board, I think, is in support of,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what's the time frame for the permit? End of the year?
So, yes,
annual?
good point. So the permit would be through, we will do it on a calendar year basis, so it would be through December 31st. And then come January 1st, obviously, you're not gonna have, it's gonna be a different type of year, but
Yeah.
you would come back and apply for another permit for next year.
Okay.
Is that okay?
It's understandable, and that's this department here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
When-
anything else?
Well, when the insurance certificate insurance binder comes in, I just want to take a look at that.
Can you send us that?
Yeah, send it.
Send something, and I forwarded it to
Okay, then I'll take a look at
Yeah,
that.
we sent that and the Department of Health.
And he has a special event permit application that he's completing, and he'll get back to me shortly.
Yes.
Good, and you haven't mentioned it, sounds like everybody's aware. The only other thing I always say whenever there's a permit application for something down at the river or anywhere else is just to make sure that the building inspector is consulted to make sure whatever he believes, whatever safety measures he believes should be included are included in the certificate, in the in the permit.
All right, so the board is in support of your application to have a permit through December 31st, which will obviously get you through the rest of the movies on the Hudson. I think there are 4 movies. Mike, how many movies left? 4 more. 4 more movies left, and I believe we have 4 more concerts at the gazebo. 3 concerts at the gazebo. All right, so you'll have a minimum of 7 events down there that the board is in full support of you providing food and beverage services down there. No alcohol, right?
No.
Okay.
If I may add,
Yes.
I consulted with the special events committee, the chief movie maker people, and they both were fully in support that I spoke to.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll see you down there at the next movie or the next concert.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being
Have a good
patient,
night.
Anthony.
Thank you.
All right. What's the matter? Oh, do I need to do a motion for that? Yes?
To approve.
Okay, so I'm going to propose a motion to.
You already seconded.
Oh, I
It's already
did?
been second, yeah.
We had some discussion, but I'm not sure when there was
I thought there was a second.
There was
then
a
I started
second.
Discussion.
Okay.
All right, but we can redo it.
All right, look, I'll
So
propose.
moved.
So moved, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, Cornwall and Hudson Special Events Committee. I'm gonna make a motion to accept the Cornwall and Hudson Special Events Committee and its membership, currently a private committee of local citizens, as a Village of Cornwall and Hudson committee going forward. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Michael, welcome to the village. All right. so
Mr.
that is
Mr. Mayor,
that.
Mr.
All right.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, are
Yes,
you
sir.
going to announce who's on the committee?
Well, it's him and Dominic. That's who the committee is. But both of them, I think, especially Mike, would like to find some other earnest volunteers to move into those roles.
We do have some that will provide names.
Just on the
So they don't have to have their own.
Sure, right. So, Dave, Trustee Carnwright brings up a great point. So the reason why we're looking to do this is, obviously, if you fall under the village as a committee, for indemnification purposes, they don't have to seek and pay for their own insurance. They're covered by the village. It just makes sense since these people are volunteers and they're doing stuff on behalf of the village. So they will join the Riverfront Committee. And what are the other committees we have that fall under that too? Anything else?
Committee on committees.
Committee on the committees, but yes, just like the Riverfront Committee. So they will now be an official special events committee for the Village of Cornwall and Hudson. Okay, next, introductory local law to designate a no parking area on Wilson Road. Counselor, how were we gonna proceed on this? I know we discussed it in attorney-client, and I am drawing a complete blank.
I had prepared a draft local law. In a nutshell, the local law provides for no parking on Wilson Road on the eastern side
Okay.
from Hudson Street north 100 feet. I had the local law reviewed by Superintendent Halverson. He said that that is correct. And so I'd also prepared a resolution for the board to, if it would like, well, actually, maybe I didn't prepare a resolution because I wasn't sure if it was going to be on for tonight. But what the board can do if it wants to, if it's ready to schedule a public hearing for the July session, we can do that. I think we already have 2 public hearings. I mean, they're pretty brief, right? One is going to be the public hearing on the short-term rental law. The other is the, what did we do earlier this evening? Potentially the Fire Commission local law. This would be the 3rd. This is very brief. I'm just bringing it to the board's attention. So if the board would like, the board can, someone on the board can make a motion to schedule a public hearing on a local law that would amend chapter 15548 of the village code to designate a no parking area on on the east side of Wilson Road from Hudson Street north 100 feet designate the board as the lead agency, preliminarily classify the action as an unlisted action under seeker, schedule a public hearing for the July meeting for a public hearing with respect to the local law and to determine any potential adverse environmental impacts of that law.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Counselor. Okay, the next one is gonna be the New York State Cannabis and Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. So really quickly, if you'll indulge me, I'm just gonna go through a couple of notes that I took at the New York Conference of Mayors 2 weeks ago, and kind of boil down to what we need to know as a board. The board has discussed this. We understand that the possession and use of cannabis is already legal. The actual sale of adult use cannabis is not expected to begin until late 2022 at the earliest. Individuals and organizations must obtain a license before engaging in cultivation, processing, distributing, delivering, or dispensing cannabis, or operating a cooperative microbusiness, nursery, or on-site consumption establishment. Legalization of use, you have to be 21 years old or older, and you're allowed a possession of up to 3 ounces of cannabis or 24 grams of concentrated cannabis. You're also allowed consumption of same and the paraphernalia that goes with it. Here's where the board is involved, because none of that stuff involves us. We don't have any say in that. We have say in 2 things, and we are allowed to opt out of those things if we as a village board elect to do so. The first is a dispensary, which you should think of like a liquor store, but for cannabis. And the other is an on-site consumption facility. Think about a bar, but for marijuana. The village board is allowed to opt out of that. A law has to be drafted in order to. The Cornwall team won something, yeah.
Sounds like it.
The village board can opt out of those things. We have to make a decision to do so by December 31st. If we don't opt out by December 31st, we will never have the opportunity to opt out of a dispensary or an on-site consumption facility or one or the other after December 31st. However, if we elect to opt out of one or both, we can always opt in a day later. So if we decide to opt out of those, meaning we pass a law that disallows a dispensary, meaning a place that sells weed, or a place where you can go in to imbibe, meaning you can smoke marijuana, if we decide to opt out of those, we have the option to opt in at any time. This is subject to a
Permissive
referendum. So if the board votes to opt out of this, and somebody was so inclined to get 20%, the signatures of 20% of the registered voters in Cornwall and Hudson, so it's around 2,100 people, you'd have to get 400 signatures. If you elected to do that, you could force this to go to a public referendum and put it up for a vote. Really quickly, because we're not going to pass any laws tonight, the board will give us quick position on where we are. I'm career law enforcement. I am all about following the law, and whatever is legal in this village, as New York State has passed the laws and the legislation has done it and the governor signed it, we respect and honor. If given the option to opt out, I am in favor of opting out. I am not in favor of dispensary in the village. I am not in favor of an on-site consumption facility. So I will be voting to opt out of both. Trustee Kane.
I'm voting to opt out in both for a few reasons. One, we can always opt back in. Two, that what I want to see, this is not going to be implemented until the beginning of 2022.
2022.
So, and there's a state excise tax of 9%, local tax of 4%. And of the 4%, the local municipality will get about 75% of that. So when you start cutting that down, I don't really know how much is going to be shared, how much is going to come the village's way. I'd like to see this play out in other municipalities, particularly other villages, to see what tax revenue is going to be garnered from this. Once we see that, we see the landscape, we can then potentially opt back in. And the other thing I just want to point out too is, while New York State is going forward with this, everyone just needs to bear in mind on my old law enforcement cap, and that is it's on the federal side, this is still it's still legal. So it's still a Schedule I substance. But that being said, I am for opting out on both.
And to Deputy Mayor Kane's point, if you are a government employee, if you're an FBI agent, it doesn't matter that New York State has legalized cannabis. You cannot smoke cannabis. You cannot smoke marijuana. And I think a lot of businesses will have to face how they're going to navigate that. It's been legal in Colorado since 2009. I think there are something like 22 states that have legalized it. Now, one of the things that they can do, and to Deputy Mayor Kane's point, there are supposedly, and this is the numbers given to us by New York State, there's supposedly $350 million of tax revenue that's coming back on this. Now, there are 1,550 municipalities in this state, the state of New York. That's cities, towns, and villages. What is our percentage or share of that as a small 3,000 person village? Probably not much, but to his point, to Deputy Mayor Kane's point, it would be worth it to see that. I don't know if $100,000 coming back to us would change my mind. I don't know if $500,000 coming back to us would change, but maybe to somebody it would, and maybe if we see how it benefits other communities and it doesn't affect them on the other side effects, then maybe we would take up a different vote. So without further ado, Trustee
I
Carnwright.
agree. I would vote to opt out of both right now. It doesn't make any sense really to be in it now until we see what's gonna happen. I think one of the things we also gotta remember is they have a school in the village here, and it just doesn't make any sense to me with a school in the village. Not good.
All right, anything else, Dave?
Nope.
Good. Trustee Brain.
I am more inclined to vote in favor of a dispensary, of allowing a dispensary with very strict zoning controls in place as to where it can be placed, to Dave's point, to, prevent the sale of marijuana next to a school, similar to the way we might regulate a liquor store, which we don't have, but, which we also don't have in the village at present. That said, I think that there's, it's in all likelihood, it seems to me that the village might eventually opt in on something like a dispensary. I personally would not be in favor of a consumption establishment. For the record, I would also not be in favor of a cigar bar. I find it noxious, and I think that to the extent that we can prevent, that kind of air quality issue being, brought to the village, that would be one thing. That said, and the other piece of this is that, to me, there's more than just the potential taxation revenue that we might garner. It's that one of the ways that I think we can assist the village in its economic development is to, attract tourism, and tourists will go to, especially, from New York City, the type of folks that we were seeing during COVID who are coming up from, I always think of it as Brooklyn, but many places south of here, coming up to recreate and so on. They're spending money and, kind of getting that kind of economic activity here, and being in, this sounds overly businessy, but getting in on the ground floor is potentially a better position to be in than lagging behind some other municipalities that might open such establishments and, end up reaping those rewards in advance of us. That said, we're going to take a vote, and obviously the board is mostly in a certain position, and so that is my position.
All right, thank you. So as I count it, so I would be for opting out of both. Trustee Kane opting out of both. Trustee Carnwright opting out of both. Trustee Brain opting out of the on-site consumption facility, opting in on the dispensary. Am I right? Okay, so with that, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the attorney for the village to draft an introductory local law, which will be subject to permissive referendum, to opt out of permitting retail dispensaries and on-site consumption establishments from locating and operating within our boundaries. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, moving on to other business.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
are you anticipating that we already have several public hearings for July? Are you anticipating doing that for the August meeting? It's a simple, it's a 1 or 2 page local law.
You
Just
think it
asking
makes
is
sense
fair.
to do it at the August meeting?
Well, I'm just asking. I mean, because if it will be at the August meeting, then we'll do a verbal resolution as we, oh, excuse me. If the board wanted to do it at the July meeting, then we'd have to do what we just did with the last local law, which was, designate the board as lead agency, et cetera. There's time. I mean, this has to be in place before
Or December 31st?
before December 31st. So if the board wants to schedule for the August meeting, the law itself is very straightforward. I don't know what type of public comment you might get, but it's kind of a binary decision, right? The
Yeah,
board's going to say yes or no. So
Is there a requirement to hold a public hearing? I mean, it's obviously subject to a
Yes.
permissive referendum, but there is a requirement to hold a public hearing, so then maybe it makes sense to do this in August to give us time, or no?
I can do it either way. I'm just asking the board its preference.
Dave, any benefits one way or the other?
We have 3 public hearings scheduled for the July meeting currently.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Maybe
Right.
we should do it in
This
August.
is likely to be the one that might generate some public comment.
Yep.
And thus
There it is.
extend the length of our meeting.
We'll do it in August.
Okay.
All right.
I have one point of information.
Sure.
Is the, if we were, let's say we opted out December 15th, the permissive referendum can be brought by, if there were interested parties to try to do so, it can be brought after that any time, right? That's not subject to the December 31st.
That is, not to my knowledge, but I would want to check that, but I do not think that the permissive referendum is subject to that December 31st. That's a requirement for the municipality.
I'm not sure if I understand exactly the question, but it is the adoption of a local law, right? So we'd go through the standard process, put it on for a public hearing, and then the board would adopt it. In this case, clearly, the board is going to adopt, not definitively, but most likely adopt the opt-out. Once the law is adopted, then signatures can be collected to have, if the residents want to challenge the local law, to have sign a petition asking that it be placed on the ballot, the permissive referendum. It's an interesting timing question that we have to get to, because the law has
By
to,
March.
it would
Would it require a
perhaps
special
require a special election, right? So that may be one reason to hold off until the August meeting so we can think about the timing. Because, and I think there's a difference between the election law and the village law on some of these issues, which NICOM is actually looking into. There may be some supplemental state legislation concerning when or if a special election needs to be held. So I think while the legislature is looking into those things, why don't we set it for the August meeting? And then you can adopt it in August, you can adopt it in September. But again, I think we need to look at the timing, because under most statutes, there's a time frame, between 120 days and 150 days. I'm just making that up. If you have that much time, or if that much time is 150 days before the next election, then you must hold a special election. So I think it's worth it to do a little research and make sure we get the timing right.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving on to other business. All right, so I'm going to report that the July work session and business meeting are to be combined again this year, and they will be held here in the Edward C. Moulton Jr. Village Boardroom on Monday, July 26th at 7 p.m. The August work session and business meeting will also be combined. They will also be held in the Edward C. Moulton Jr. Village Boardroom on Monday, August 16th at 7 p.m. All right, moving on. Board of Fire Commissioner appointments. Joe, do you want to give a quick 1-minute distillation of where we're at on that? We discussed that obviously earlier before the meeting, but where we are on the local law creating or establishing the Board of Fire Commissioners for the village?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is an issue that the board has discussed a number of times. The consensus in most of our past discussions about this is that there will be a three-member board. So I made some proposed revisions, all subject to the board's discussion. These are literally for lack of legal reasoning. These are things I made up based upon our discussions. Would be a three-member board, and the will consist of one village board member, who would be a trustee and not the mayor. And then two additional board members that have appropriate training in management or accounting or some skill set.
If I can interrupt you for a second, I think we said a board member, not necessarily the mayor. I think that's, do you remember it being that way? Because I thought that's what it was. I mean,
Well, if you want the mayor to still be optional, I can draft it
I
that
know
way.
that I will not be on the Board of Fire Commissioners, but I know
Crystal.
that the next mayor may consider doing that. I think that's why we worded it that way, to suggest it had to be a member of the board. And that was it. We weren't gonna say it had to be a trustee.
Okay. I'll just make sure that that's clear.
Okay.
The members would be residents of the village.
Yep.
And they should possess experience in leadership, management, fire and/or rescue services, or such other relevant experience as the village board deems appropriate.
Yes, sir.
For the board's further discussion and for some clarification as to the language, the board had previously discussed whether or not, and I believe not, whether or not the board could contain a member of the current Storm King Fire Engine Company number 2. So the laws drafted right now would say that an active member of the fire engine company would be ineligible.
Yes.
And the board has had some discussions about what does the term active mean? Are retired and we have individuals that we can rely on and ask these questions of. You know,
100%.
whether it's, what does active really mean? Are people retired with the appropriate experience, but are they still, if they're lifetime members, are they still active? We'd need to, you know, have that discussion and clarify that.
And chief and assistant chief, maybe I could ask you guys to kind of put some thoughts down for me, just in an email or something, basically outlining how you see it. We talked about this, we get it that somebody could be retired and maybe they just help work at the fair every year, or maybe they come in on calls, but they're not so we need to define what an active member is. We obviously don't want somebody who is in the hierarchy at the engine company to be on the Board of Fire Commissioners for obvious reasons. But how can we find somebody with the requisite experience that still may have a connection to the firehouse, but how do we draw that line of delineation? Can you guys give that some thought and then get back to me and Joe on that, and I'll share it with the board? Fair? Okay. What else, Counselor?
Those would be the changes from the law that we have right now.
You good with it?
Yeah, yeah.
Gentlemen?
If I'm not mistaken, sorry, so we haven't made any motions, we're
No.
not,
No,
this is-
I rewrote this and I emailed it to everyone, so this is just solely discussion.
Okay.
And if
Yep.
you need further changes, I can tweak it and recirculate it.
If I recall correctly, I believe that there was one specification was that one of the members be a board member, a village board member, that is to say, one have fire experience, may or may not potentially be a former Storm King Engine Company number 2 member, and the third be someone else from the community. I believe was how we phrased it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what I just said, which is a good point. We had somewhat lengthy discussions, and then my recollection, one thing that was discussed was whether we just have the other 2 board members essentially be at-large members. My one concern, or maybe you can discuss it, is if you try to very closely define that one board position in a small village like this, you could end up with some trouble filling that position. So this was a little broader, where it
Okay.
left two at-large positions, I'll call them.
One with fire experience.
Well, it doesn't specifically say, but it does say the board members, not one position A or position C, but the members should have the requisite training, skill, experience as the board deems appropriate.
It gives us some leeway.
Okay.
Yeah.
The implementation of it gives us leeway.
All right. Okay.
But I'll circulate it, and then
Please
just
do.
let me know your comments.
Yeah,
and
and
if-
let's just get with the chief and assistant chief just to get that,
I can
their thoughts on it.
distribute it to them as well.
Perfect. All right.
So you want to make a motion to set a public hearing?
Yeah, I guess we have to, right? So I am going to make a motion to set a public hearing on the local law creating new chapter 56 of the Village Code establishing the Board of Fire Commissioners of the Village of Cornwall on Hudson. You need to set the date for that?
Yes.
What's the date we're gonna set for that?
July
Kim?
26th.
July 26th at the
gonna be the-
combined meeting. So it'll be the fourth one.
No,
Yes.
because we put the other one.
This is
over.
the third one.
Oh, this is the third one then, yes. Because we put we
Okay.
put the MRTA over to August.
Okay.
Okay? May I have a second?
Just to note, it's not establishing a new chapter. I'll correct it.
It's a
I
mandate.
know that's what the draft says.
Got it. No
Because
worries.
we did establish the
Okay,
chapter.
so it's
So
amending.
no, I'll rework the format a little bit.
Okay.
Once I have a consensus, I'll just rework the format, and it would just be amending
Okay.
the existing chapter.
All right, may I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving along. This one has probably taken more time in the course of the last month than any other item on the agenda, and that is ambulance services for the Village of Cornwall and Hudson. I have had a number of meetings with Supervisor Myers and one of them with members of the board in the town of New Windsor. Trustee Kane and I have attended one executive session with the town board. I attended another one solo with the town board to discuss what we are going to do with ambulatory services, BLS, which is basic life support, or ALS, advanced life support, the difference between an EMT and a paramedic responding going forward. The town of New Windsor has elected not to allow us to receive those services without paying for it, since they subsidize their ambulatory care services. So their town pays for it. They pay so that they exist. We don't. And what happened is, as a result of the fact that billing has slowed down because a lot of people during COVID were not going to hospitals and ambulances were responding, and then people were RMAing or refusing medical attention, deciding not to go to the hospital. It's put a hurt on a lot of the ambulatory services in the region, across the country. Long story short, at the last work session, which was last Monday night, the board approved a resolution to enter into a contract together with the town of Cornwall and the town of New Windsor EMS, for advanced life support ambulance services between the dates of July 1st and December 31st, 2021. The total monthly cost is $12,000, of which the village's portion will be $3,000. So New Windsor wants $1,440 a year, $144,000 a year from us collectively. Our portion of that is 25% of the population of Cornwall proper. Our portion would be $3,000 out of the monthly $12,000 that they are charging Cornwall for this response. So the board passed a resolution, and we will be paying $3,000 a month for the months of July through December of this year. I imagine we're going to be entering into another contract, whether it's with New Windsor or someone else, on January 1st. So we have a short amount of time, a short window here to come up with a plan, because our residents deserve a top flight response capability from EMS. Right now, COVAC is going through some restructuring. They're going through some restructuring right now, of which the town is looking very closely at. We are looking closely at, and we're going to have to enter into a contract with COVAC as well. And it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a similar amount of money. So, you know, we're looking at figuring out a way that we have not budgeted for, because we never did this before, to come up with about $6,000 per month to pay for ambulatory service. Well, Jimmy, why would you do that? Why not just have people dial 911? It goes to the county 911 center, and then they dispatch the nearest closest ambulance. And let's just say that by the time an ambulance service is ready or available to come to Cornwall and somebody's having problems breathing or having chest pains, and that ambulance service has to come from Wallkill or from the town of Newburgh, and we're looking at residents, you know, potentially in life-threatening situations, it's just a no-brainer. So the board decided on the $3,000 a month through December 31st, and I'm going to report that a joint meeting has been scheduled between the town and the village boards, which I think we're going to make happen a lot more often going forward. We're going to either do it annually or biannually, but we're going to have joint meetings. But this one is to negotiate the terms of a contract with the Cornwall Volunteer Ambulance Corps, also known as COVAC, for BLS, Basic Life Service Ambulance Services, and that meeting will be on June 29th at Town Hall. Sir?
Mayor, has the board already scheduled that, or are you going to make a motion now to hold a special meeting so that it can be?
You the big dollars. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So
didn't even-
yes. So how do I do that? I make a motion.
To hold a special meeting jointly with the town, this is with the town of Cornwall,
The town of Cornwall.
for
Okay.
June 29th.
Okay. I am going to make a motion to hold a special session via a joint meeting between the town and the village board on June 29th at 19:30 hours for the purposes of discussing contracting with COVAC for BLS ambulance services. May I have a second?
Second.
All in, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, does the board plan to take, because that's 2 days before this contract needs to be effective, correct?
No, this is separate because this is the BLS services with COVAC. So it has nothing to do with New Windsor. So the contract with New Windsor begins on July 1st, expires on December 31st. We're going to have to enter into a separate agreement with COVAC. I'm right about that.
We don't
right?
know what day it's going to start.
And we don't know what day it's going to start.
Okay.
So they're still functioning right now, but for them to be financially solvent and to be back with a better response rate, it's going to take some pruning and tweaking and some changes there. So they presented a business plan, which we took a look at, meaning myself, Deputy Mayor Kane, and their board. And now we're going to have the full boards there to discuss it with COVAC, and then we'll make a determination. I don't think we're going to enter into a contract that night. I think this is more informational and discuss debate than anything else.
Okay, and is the town of New Windsor then taking the lead on drafting? Is that Dave Zagon? Is that
Yes, sir.
what you mentioned? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll contact
If
Dave
you
Zagon.
would,
Yep.
please, yes, but they are going to draft the contract for us, but they know the stipulations. Okay, that's that on ambulance services. 2021 fee schedule amendments. I apologize because I feel like I keep kicking this can down the road, but unfortunately, this is probably not going to be looked at until, I'm gonna table this fee schedule amendments. Again, we're gonna continue with the fee schedule, and this is just related to code enforcement and building inspection. It's not related to any of the water stuff. We've already passed that, but in regards to this, I am working closely with the code enforcement officer and having some other people weigh in as well, but we want to make our system more fair, more just, more in line with similar municipalities for what we're charging folks. So just be patient on that. Maple Avenue property, I think we kind of handled that one at the top. Village Hall teleconferencing system, I think I handled that at the top. So you will be able to, like I said at the top, you'll be able to watch this in real time. You'll also be able to go to our YouTube channel and go back and watch it after the fact. So it'll be available, right, Mark? Is it going? All right.
Question on that.
Yes, sir.
The PTZ cameras, can you make it pan? I was gonna say P. I'm just curious because I was glancing at the monitor as people were speaking at the podium, and it looks like it cut off a little bit when I saw you adjust it. Is it functioning to like be able to?
I think we learned a couple lessons tonight.
The camera is fixed physically, and it's an ePTU, so virtual PTZ. And so when we're fully zoomed out, which is what we are, we can't move the image.
Move the podium.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. A couple things as I'm
Why it's
looking at the
on
picture
wheels.
from up here. I think the first row of seats might need to go back a little bit because you're looking into the laps of people on the front row there. You know what I mean? Push that back a little bit, and then I think we need to pull the podium up tighter because you could not see the speaker. You could only see part of his face. But that's on our alignment. We're learning that now. No, no, we appreciate it. Mark volunteered to be here on his own tonight, he's not on the clock, just to get us through our first meeting and to make sure we didn't have any glitches.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna, on the for-you information side of the house, I'm gonna report on the following upcoming events. The July 4th parade will take place at 1 PM this year. It's normally 5 PM. It's gonna be earlier in the day. There will be no fireworks. There are some other events. I know that, I think on Saturday,
Pet show?
the pet show is going to happen. Anything else, Dave, on that end that,
Children's games also.
okay, and children's games. All right, summer playground, I think we're at, and don't quote me on this, I said that with the press sitting in the front row. I think we're at like 130 and change, registered kids for our summer playground, which is a great number. It'll be held from July 6th to August 13th. Our camp is from 9 AM to 1 PM. We're not accepting any more. I think the town has closed theirs as well. Theirs is running from 9 AM to 2 PM. So that's the information I have on that. And then the Storm King Engine Company #2 barbecue at Donahue Memorial Park will take place on July 10th this year. And that's all I have. All right, so the final public comment section is now. Does anybody have anything that they would like to say to the board? You can step up to our podium and just give your name and your home of record, and then you are free to speak on any topic. Sir.
Brendan Coyne, 13 Paula Court. Just a couple of comments on things that have happened recently. I attended the ceremony for Harriet Josephine Terry, who helped establish the Kappa Alpha Kappa, and you folks had a proc read by the deputy mayor. It was a wonderful occasion. I had no idea that we had someone in the village of color who had reached a wonderful pinnacle, and I'm glad that we recognized it. I'd just like to mention another event that I attended. Eagle Scout Julian Martinez received his Eagle Scout award on June 12th, and that was in conjunction with his doing a plaque or a sign at Cliffside Park in conjunction with the DPW. He did some plantings there at the towers as you come in. There's further work to be done there, but I just want to acknowledge him. And finally, thank you very much for allowing me to be on the Donahue Farm Committee. Thanks.
We are happy to have you, sir. Just to Mayor Coyne's 2 points, the Harriet J. Terry New York State Historical Marker, which was unveiled, unfortunately, I happen to be upstate at the New York Conference of Mayors, and I'm very appreciative the deputy mayor was able to be there. I understand it was well attended. I saw the photos of those in attendance. I think what is the most amazing thing is that in 1903, when she graduated from Cornwall High School, which is which is an apartment building now, but which is directly across the street from the administration buildings, right around the corner from here. In 1903, she was one of 5 African-American families in our village, and she went on to receive distinction academically at Howard University, as well as founding Alpha Kappa Alpha, which is one of the biggest and just the most amazing, if you read up on their history and their mission, sororities in the country, and just the things that she achieved. And think about it, in 1903, could not have been easy, and it was long overdue, and I think Susan Camlett was one of the people that were instrumental in kind of making that happen. But if you get a chance and can walk down to where the high school is that she went to school, the apartment building, and look at the historical marker, it is beautiful. It's one of the blue edged in gold markers, and I think it's really a very proud tradition. The second thing the former mayor brought up was about Julian Martinez, and he came in last week, and he and his mother, and we are going to honor him at a upcoming board meeting. I don't know if it'll happen this summer because with all the stuff that we have on the plate, possibly in September, and we're going to recognize him at a village board meeting. He's shown some great interest in local government and wants to attend some of our meetings, and just as Mayor Coyne pointed out, a super kid. All right, trying to think if there's anything else. I guess any other public comment? Nobody else? Okay, I'm gonna go around the board. I'll start with Trustee Brain.
I should have said earlier that we received those 25 applications for the Donahue Farm Planning Steering Committee, and it was an incredibly hard decision to pare it down to the 9 voting members, the advisory members. Well, it wasn't that hard to pare it down to the advisory members. We knew who we wanted advising us, and the historical initiative as well. So I would just like to, some of the folks have left. I would like to thank the entire community for, such enthusiasm around this project. It's a really exciting opportunity. And everyone who sent in a response to our, when we sent them the questionnaire that they filled out, everybody wrote a little bit about their ideas for the property. And I've had conversations today as I informed the appointees and those who applied but were not able to be appointed, to just reassure them that all of their ideas that they submitted as part of that are the first round of sort of public survey about what do you think we should do with this property. So that's an ongoing part of what this committee is going to do, but I just wanted to assure everybody who did reach out and look for a position on this committee that their ideas are already in the hopper, and there's going to be more to come. And that was it on that.
And I want to just echo again, thanks to Trustee Brain, who really put a lot of work in on kind of establishing the parameters for this, and had the unenviable task of making phone calls to the folks that did not get selected. And trust me, it was a very tough decision for the board to make those cuts, but he called everybody, and that's the right way of doing business. So Bill, I appreciate you for that.
My pleasure. And our residents were universally gracious, by the way.
Excellent. All right, Trustee Cornwall.
No, just to piggyback on what Bill said, it was really a great group of people who applied to do public service, which was really what this night was about with Ed and all the people that were in the room. They don't make a lot of money to work in the village, so these people putting in these kind of years, and all those people that sat in those first 2 rows are people that have given a lot to the village, along with Ed. So it was really about public service and commitment, and we just got this through the Donahue Farm property, and all those people that applied, most of them I know, few I don't, but they're all public servants too. So
Thank you, Dave. Deputy Mayor Kane.
Just a few things. One is thank you to Post 353, the American Legion, for the Memorial Day Parade, and Commander Krupewski for the memorial service that was done. It was excellent. And again, thanks to the Storm King Fire and Company. You guys are always there and very supportive, and we really appreciate that. Second thing is the Harry J. Terry unveiling ceremony. Absolutely wonderful event. Village very proud. All I can say, it was the entire ceremony was a class act, and it was wonderful meeting all the women who belonged to it, listening to their stories and listening to them sing. Absolutely, it was entertaining. It was just a beautiful event. So I'm unfortunately you couldn't make it, but I was glad to be there in your stead. And the last thing is to thank you, Jim, for seeing this through for Ed and Mayor Moulton. I know this had been talked about for quite some time, potentially renaming the room here, and getting the picture done and dedicating it and dedicating the room. Thanks for taking the lead on that and following through. And I think it's well-deserved and long overdue.
Thank you. And thank you to the board, especially thank you, Gene, I know, for all the effort to help get that done. You're going to see more of this coming, because as I looked around the room tonight and I saw some folks that, were in their 80s and in their 90s, and a lot of them, trustees or former mayors who you know, when they finish their term, it's just kind of like, you know, they're seen out to pasture and they're, you know, in a certain sense. And I don't think we do enough to honor those people's public service. Well, we're going to. I can't name a room after every former mayor, but I can promise you this, there are things that we're gonna do going forward to recognize those folks, whether they're trustees or mayors or village employees. We're gonna do some things going forward, so buckle your seatbelts. That's all I've got. I think the only thing that's left for me is to make a motion to close the meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks for coming, folks. Remember, these mics are live, so if you want to badmouth me, step outside in the hallway so it doesn't get picked up. Yeah.
Yeah, I spoke to Rudy, I spoke to you.
I didn't even see him there, and I'm like going over the thing, and he's like, and they're like, look, look, look. I'm like,
He's like, absolutely want to do it. So I said, fine.
Awesome.
Look at the same thing.
Hey, Mark,
Hear
is everything dead now?
Jim, we're talking
Okay,
about.
yeah, let's go ahead and make everything dead.